Here we go, here we go, here we go, here we go. It is Markets in the Morning. Let's go. Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is the Blockchain Backer, bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Welcome to Markets in the Morning. Today is Wednesday, December 10th, 2025. This is Markets in the Morning, where we take a look at the price action of the cryptocurrency market, including the Bitcoin price chart and the altcoin market, and of course, XRP, as we get ready for the United States stock market to open up in about 29 minutes from right now. Take a look over there at the US dollar currency index, precious metals like gold and silver. Did I say the DXY yet? I don't know. Anyway, we'll take a look over there at any type of financial news or crypto news that's going on out there in the universe, and get ready to kick off this super fine Wednesday. Today is Fed Day, so we'll have a Fed meeting, FOMC meeting, where they are anticipated to do a rate cut today. So expect some intraday volatility for sure. I think that's in about 5 hours from right now. We'll check out on that in just a second. Otherwise, it's a Wednesday. We try to keep it light, tight, and bright and have ourselves a good time. So happy Wednesday, my dudes.
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
All right. Enough of that goofing off stuff, man. Hey, thank you all so much for tuning in. I appreciate it so much. If you could, please hit the like button. It's the #1 way to support the channel. Oh no, I did it again. That's what I always do, don't I? All right, you're gonna hear the sound again. There we go. All right, turn that off. There we go. Yeah, boom. All right. I get rusty with this. I even say that before I start the live stream. I'm like, man, I sure hope I remember how to do all of this. All right. Let's go ahead and dive in. Today, of course, is Fed Day. We all know it. A lot of times we see volatility before it. I think you saw that yesterday in crypto. It had a nice little pop up there in crypto. Pretty much took a lot of it back. Ethereum is still up. XRP, I think, got up to like $2.18. It's back down to 206 again today. Kind of just like a lot of short squeezes and long squeezes of what we've been seeing here in the market for the last several weeks as we've been stuck in this range. We'll see if anything comes from this Fed meeting, if it causes any type of trending to start emerging. So it's anticipated that they will do a 25 basis point rate cut, or 0.25%. Here, we'll go ahead and do this right here, right? It's at an 89.9% probability that they'll do it. The 2-month yield also corroborates that they will end up doing it as well. The thing that is interesting, of course, looking ahead, is that this appears to be, at least, right, unless some type of catalyst emerges, which catalysts always emerge, right? Everybody says, oh, let me do this. Just make it easier for you guys to see. Here we go. Make the numbers a little bit bigger. How about that? There you go. And then I'll zoom back out. Catalysts always end up emerging, right? We know that in markets. Everybody prices in a perfect market with no catalysts, but go back and look at the last 5 years, how many catalysts have emerged. They always end up showing up. But in a perfect world, of course, the Fed says that they're essentially going to be done today. So whatever they end up saying, it's anticipated that they're going to say, we've now reached neutral, we're done. The market doesn't have it priced in that we're going to see any more cuts until potentially June. And even at June, it only has it at a 60-70% probability that we'll see something by then. You can go back and reflect on what the last couple of years have been like on the market pricing things out ahead, and how poor of a job the market does at pricing in rate cuts. But that's where we're at. It's totally expected that they're going to do this cut, but then they're going to say, we're done for now. Then, of course, we all know that it takes a catalyst for them to start cutting extremely aggressive. So anticipate that, and that it'll be like a hawkish cut. You're going to see that in all the news stuff and everything, is that they're going to do the cut, but then he's going to go back to being hawkish again when he does it. And it's just kind of like, they're done. So anticipate that today. We'll see how markets do react to it. and kind of go from there. I don't know what the markets are going to do during that. We know there can be a lot of volatility leading up to it, a lot of volatility during it, and a lot of volatility afterwards, depending on just how things go and how the market appropriately priced itself. So that's later today. Here, hold on. That's in 4 hours and 53 minutes. So, of course, we know that in 4 hours and 53 minutes, that's when they release the decision. But, that's just going to be them saying they did the cut, right? And then it's going to be Jerome Powell 30 minutes after that, who comes on stage and answers questions for about an hour, giving his hawkish stance, I'm sure. So you can see reactions to the market ahead of the meeting, reactions in the market once the rate decision is out, and then reactions in the market once Jerome Powell speaks and once he's done. We've seen we don't cover these in live streams anymore, but we used to cover them. Obviously, we did it for 2.5 years maybe, and we've seen everything, right? We've seen markets crash before the decision, then markets rally during the decision, then crash back down again with Powell. We've seen markets rip upwards on the release of the data and then crash once Powell speaks. We've seen markets remain stable, and then Powell speaks and the markets rip to the upside, and then the second Powell gets off stage, we've watched markets crash and crumble after that. So totally anything goes during these meetings. It's kind of annoying because there's really no way to analyze it during the moment to see how it's going to end up reacting. The only thing I can do is kind of pull up the broader charts and kind of look at the bigger trends. You guys know what the higher time frame indicators all look like, right, on the monthly time frame and everything like that. So I'm not going to dive into a lot of that stuff. So we'll just look through everything here, right? So obviously Bitcoin's still just waddling around here in these levels. It's still kind of struggling here at $94,000 underneath these price levels, right? This is the area, of course, for this one right in here. We'll see if that pans out. Obviously, we've held at the 100-week moving average. Will we move our way back up to the 50-week moving average? Still anybody's guess. I think the more interesting thing has been Ethereum's done okay in here. Still corroborating that it is, more along the price action, along the lines of this currently right now. One thing, I'll show you this over here on Total 2 in just a second, or the altcoin market, right? We've watched the price behavior happening in here and how it still corroborates this type of action, or even over there on XRP that we've talked about being in this type of action right down in here, which is similar to this type of action or this type of action here in the crypto market that we're seeing that over here on Ethereum as well. Look at it from this lens, right? What did it look like coming off of the peak in here, right? You come off of your peak, then you have your post-liquidation range. There's your post-liquidation range right in here, right? It moves down one level and then goes down to find a real support down in here, moves down a level and goes down to find a real support. And then we just enter into all that ranging context behavior, which is what I'm making the videos. I'm kind of like, man, what are we going to talk about for 2 months? How do I come on here and do it? Because look, people definitely just want to always hear, we're going to go up, we're going to go up, we're going to go up nonstop. It's right. So, I think there's I think we just kind of got to get through this, and then, then we could start looking at it through that light, and I'm all for it. But I think we just have to traverse this. And here's what I think too. I think a lot of people are invested in this kind of crazy thing that they're going to see a multi-$100 XRP in the month of December from a Japan carry trade thing. And I kind of reflect back on it. I think there's a lot of people invested in that. And that, so this, of course, that was like a lottery for a lot of people. They think they're going to win a lottery ticket here, and they're kind of being told, I don't think that's going to happen. And so there's a lot of, a lot of that. But anyway, nothing unusual happening in here, kind of what you would expect. Bitcoin not quite as strong to be able to get up in there, but we'll see how things go here today. We'll see if we can catch ourselves a bounce after the Fed meeting or how it ends up going. The Russell 2000, of course, has been holding up well. It's right there at that 4.236 as we get ready to head into that. So, of course, everybody's watching that to see if that thing can get a breakout. But at the same time, we have the conflict over here You have a very conflicting market just in general. After, this is obviously over 45-year resistance level here for silver, almost 46, because this is January of 1980. So next month I would make that 46 years. And it's just completely breaking out. We're at $61 for silver. What does this mean? What story is being told to the market right now? Yikes. Right. So, as you all know, I'm a big silver guy. So of course I'm happy to see that, but I also I do have concerns. What does this mean for the markets in general? This is not, it's not like this is like, oh, it's been 5 years since we've done something like this. No, it's been 45 years. So that's kind of crazy. Dollar still just kind of chilling, not really as strong as it was over the last several months or several weeks, at least several weeks. Still just kind of chilling in here, but no real breakdown happening. We'll see how things go today after the Fed meeting, if that kind of triggers something to happen in there. Of course, right, for the bulls, you obviously want to see the dollar break down. You want to see the Russell break out. And then, of course, you want to see things like silver and gold come to a complete chill, right? That improves your macro picture. And the thing is, it still just doesn't change the higher time frame indicators over there in the crypto market. That's the hardest part about it. You still have all those monthly indicators turned over. Momentum is completely gone. I think the last time I saw the Coinbase app downloads, it was ranked in the 400s. So the momentum just isn't here in the crypto market. It's going to take something to completely spark it to be able to break out of this. I think. I look back through all my data. We all have 2020 hindsight, right? That's the thing. The hardest thing to do in anything in markets is to do it in real time, because we're trying to look at things through a crystal ball. We're trying to predict what is going to end up happening next. And a really hard thing there in late September and early October is trying to look through the crystal ball and say, I think there's a relatively good chance we're going to see things fall. Not 100% certain, but I think there's a relatively decent chance we're going to see things end up falling in here. And then, we get it. And of course, now, you go through with hindsight and you say, all right, well, now everything really makes sense in here. It makes sense that, this was the peak of the market back in here. This is like our retrace rally, like the things we've talked about here with Bitcoin and how things were back in 2022. And then I go back and look through a lot of my own data and reflect back on it to still say, yeah, it makes sense. It does still seem like there has to be a capitulation event to come at the end. There has to be something that is going to completely and utterly scare the market. And the thing I try to talk about a lot on my channel is when we go through these things and we go through this, this thing is the Israel stuff, right? All the crazy stuff, right? This is the tariff stuff down in here. And then this is the insane VIX spike that happens throughout the, let's see, I can put it on there, right? So there's always something, right, to come to really spook the daylights out of the market to mark the bottom. And we know there's been nothing like that. And I still think there's going to have to be some type of capitulation. There's going to have to be something that just completely and utterly spooks the market. And we talk about these things ahead of time to try to be like, when they come, what does it feel like? Like anybody who did sell back in September and back in October, you definitely know it didn't feel good to do it, right? It felt really bad to do it. And I know that because I did it. And other people who did it, who told me, they said it felt like trash. And it always does, right? Selling at the appropriate time always feels really bad. Buying at the appropriate time always feels really bad. And so I'm kind of just mentally preparing of being there's probably going to be a capitulation event. There's probably going to be a narrative to go along with it. There's probably going to be really negative news to go with it. And some type of event that makes you think, oh man, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole, right? And we just haven't seen that. I do think we're still going to see it. And you don't know what the catalyst is, right? And so that's why they're always tough, is because right now there's no way for us to know what they are. Everybody thinks it's going to be this Japan yen carry trade thing. Everybody's, it's unlikely to be something that we know right now. And so in the thick of that moment, it'll be hard. Kind of like at the bottom of 2022, nobody thought FTX was going to collapse, right? And that marked our bottom. Right, nobody thought Luna would collapse to zero, right? But the mark of the bottom was FTX, and I remember how that like was very unsettling. And I remember getting into a Twitter Spaces with David Schwartz and saying to him, "Man, this feels different." You know, like when I went through the bottom of the 2018 bear market, the only real, like, you had Kevin O'Leary coming on and telling you don't touch it. Like, you have to know who are your bad actors, or who are your actors in the space, who come in at tops, who come in at bottoms, who try to scare you and all that different stuff. And the only real narrative we had in the bottom of 2018 was like Ethereum ICOs are selling off all of their Ethereum. That was like the main thing. And so it would make perfect sense that this one, you know, ends with Bitcoin treasuries are selling off all of their Bitcoin. Like, that would be perfect. We've seen that narrative mark bottoms before. We've seen that during capitulations before. I wouldn't be surprised if it's something like that. To be something on the level of FTX would be kind of crazy, but, you know, we have to kind of prepare for that. But there hasn't been any type of negative thing, and kind of getting mentally prepared of like, hey, whatever it's going to be ugly, it's going to be scary. And there just hasn't been anything here. Like, you tell me of a low where there's nothing negative, right? There isn't. Every one of them have it, right? There's always VIX spikes. There's always some negative, like all three of these, 1, 2, 3, they all come with that. And then we always talked about when you get to the backside of it, this is where retail won't be scared to buy it. And we know that to be the case, that retail's not scared to buy it, and there's no negative news. So I'm not going to harp on that too much. You know the drill. But I still see it through the lens of, where are you? There you are. We're just kind of creeping along, and that there's probably going to be a capitulation event. I don't know how low they're going to go, and don't look at this to say, hey, this is a prediction that this is going to 94 cents. I have no clue. I think we just have to find the confluence of the market of where that's at. I think what we're all hoping for, of course, is that it does hold this low down in here, because then it maintains a higher time frame structure. You go plowing through that, it gets a little bit more complicated on the higher time frame after that. But we'll see. We're just going to have to kind of wait for it and see how things end up going. But, you know, that's where you're at. Russell's going to, it looks like it's, you know, stocks are going to open down a little bit this morning, it looks like. It looks like the Dow's down about 54 points. The S&P is down about 6 points. The NASDAQ's down 51, and the Russell's down 8. So, of course, today is Fed Day, and we'll see. We will see how it goes. As you know, it's always funny about these things too. Is like, again, we all have 2020 hindsight, right? We can always look back on things and have perfect hindsight on it. I think we're going to look back on this and say this was telling us something. This was saying something, and we didn't know what it was at the time, but it was saying something. Because I know that for the average age of people watching my channel, this has not happened in your lifetime. So, kind of crazy. All right. Ethereum, of course, talked about it through this lens. Not unusual to think that this would be the case, that we're just kind of ABCing in here. I think the story is also the same over here. Altcoin market, I think we talked about this during Markets in the Morning last week. This is where this little white box got on here. Or it was in a video. It's hard. It's been a blur. I've been on vacation, right? You had Thanksgiving, and then, you know, I had a fishing trip that ended up happening, and memory a little blurred here. Right, but right, there's your post liquidation range. Back testing the bottom side of the post liquidation range, the floor. Now it's just, you know, how high is this thing going to end up going in here? Or how long is it going to take? We'll see. So I think we're just, again, same messaging, boring market. But I know everybody wants to hear up and away, and ETFs and all that good stuff. But I think that stuff may, I think obviously like the bull thesis of what we would want to see, right? Like what you would want to see, right? Like if the Russell fails here, right? You'd want to see something like, you know, kind of an ABC in here. And then if it blasts out from here, you know, then you have your thesis to say, you know, crypto could keep marching up after that. But what this would probably have to mean is an event like that is going to be what our capitulation would end up being. And I do think we'll see a capitulation, and just going to stay with that. I can't wait for this period to be over. I cannot stand this. If you guys have been watching for years, it's very rare we're like this. I don't really enjoy it, but I have to do it. So, okay. There you go. Yeah. So here's, what things have looked like since October 4th. Just the median returns negative 38% here since then. This is the Fed stuff. We'll see how this goes today. That's what we're all waiting on. And then just, kind of chilling here. So, all right, any type of news going on out there. Trump to start final Fed chair interviews beginning with Kevin Warsh. Hassett likely next Fed chair, but most think Trump should nominate someone else. CNBC Fed survey shows Treasury yields inch higher as Fed rate cut decision comes into focus. Yeah, it's interesting. The 10-year yield is up quite a bit. So I think that the market's not going to be happy with this. Is the 30-year mortgage rate is still well over 6%. And even if they cut by 0.25%, we're still going to have well over 6% on 30-year mortgages. And that still makes things very unaffordable. All right, stock futures are little changes. Investors await Fed decision. Trump trade. Rep changes, China soybean purchase timeline cites discrepancy. The Fed decision is expected to feature a rate cut and a lot more. Here's what to expect. The a lot more part is the hawkish tone. All right. Japan plans major shift as crypto moves from payments to securities law. Key Bitcoin price levels to watch ahead of 2025's last FOMC meeting. Bitcoin catches a bid, but data shows pro traders skeptical of rally above 92,000. How prediction markets raise insider trading and credit risks. Bitcoin firm 21 Capital drops 20% on the first day of trading. Bitcoin catches a bid. That's the exact same thing you had over here. Right there. Bitcoin catches a bid, but data shows pro traders are skeptical of rally above 92K. Tether's USDT awarded key regulatory status in Abu Dhabi. Strategies Bitcoin Treasury swells past 660,000 Bitcoin after a fresh $962 million buy. Wall Street piles in. How Ripple's quiet pivot led to a $40 billion valuation. Jack Mallers 21 Capital debuts on the New York Stock Exchange. Nothing says Bitcoin maxi like selling all of your Bitcoin in a treasury on the stock market. Nothing says, yeah. Okay. All right, guys. If you could please like the live stream, I'd appreciate it. With 300 likes on 1,435 viewers, you just close the chat, hit the like, and then we get going. All right, here we go. Let's hop on in. Of course, Chief Tame Blackbeard, as always, starts the stream out with 50 memberships gifted. Brother, thank you very, very, very much, man. I don't know what to say. You just do it every time, man. And I don't ever see you typing in the chat either, man. But thank you very, very much. Clark Scam, we need an audio version of your future book, sir. Yeah, well, I need to start it. I need to start a book to even have one. But of course, audio version would essentially, I don't know if I could even sell very many books if there wasn't an audio version with it. And to be frank, I don't it would have to just be a passion project for a book, because I don't think you make any money writing a book. You don't really make any money whatsoever. So it would be just a gift of getting to know me a little bit more, and more so for my kids to kind of see the crazy journey that it was of all of this. For you guys, it's just kind of here's this YouTuber who's got a lot of followers, and he turns on the camera and creates videos every day, but it's very unique from this side on my end, because it didn't start like that, right? In 2019, I didn't have a YouTube channel. I was just a normal dude running a business, and then it turned, life took a crazy turn, but there was a crazy story prior to that too. The Bills 42 Hey BCB. Could March of 2024 been the alt season top? From my 102 alt list, which many overlap your list, 60 topped in March of 2024, 36 in January of 2025, and only 6 recently. Maybe we've been in an alt bear nearly 2 years. Now, I do believe, so you reflect back on when the euphoria was, right? there's two periods of euphoria. One was extreme irrational euphoria, and that's the one that you're referring to back in March of 2024. Right, which would have been this one right here. If you recall, it was just absolute, utter irrationality, completely insane. The crowd was violent at any talks of it stopping in here. And I know that I remember, I don't even remember what the title of my newsletter or something was like, it's lonely. Like trying to point this out, it was very lonely and hated by the crowd on discussions of this. Remember others hit the 702 retrace and everything like that. But no, I do think that's the top, and I get it. Like you look at that, and you say, no, it's not. No, it's not. But it's having to have that same mindset again of what it was like in 2021, right? That this is really kind of technically the top. We go a little bit higher, but most altcoins do not. The story is the same right in here. I think it's just this market's become real diluted, and it's definitely going to require a lot of pondering moving forward on how to allocate in this market. Because we saw it in 2021, it'd be vastly different from 2017. And 2024 and 2025 has been vastly different than 2021. Not so much that it was like only a select few, right? We remember back in 2021, only 20% of the top 100 were capable of touching their previous all-time high. Yeah, it wasn't a surprise that it would only be like 10% or 15% or something like that. That's not the thing that was unique. The thing that was real unique is how many just didn't even catch retraces, right? It just didn't even get anything whatsoever. And right, you get XRP to go set up. XRP, I think, is still above the 2021 high. Well, technically at 206, it's still above the 2021 high, right? Not all-time high, but the 2021 high, right? Which is like $1.96, $1.98 or something like that. But then you have things like Polkadot that are like below the 2022 lows. And so you have a completely weird market now, right? Like I don't think we're ever going back to what we're ever used to. And, the people still want to think it's going to be like 2017. But of course, the resemblances have really resembled that of 2021, but even worse, right? Or in 2022, but even worse. But no, I do think technical, that's the real one. Because we saw it on things like, this has been a really good example, right? I got a lot of junk on here right now, but even Hedera Hashgraph, right? It really shows us those behaviors in here. I do think that it's all in here, and this December and January stuff. But I think some coins are obviously just a lot weaker. But I think that's our technical top in here. Let's go back. Which this would be corroborated by this, right? And now when I get to go back and look at all the stuff in hindsight, right? You go back and I can go back and look at it. I can look at a lot of my own personal data and everything like that, and how it was really quiet in here. And I remember being in that moment there in July when XRP is hitting that 350, 360, 370 level, and there just wasn't really a lot of crowd excitement happening in there. There wasn't a lot of crowd excitement there in the crypto market in general. And, all my data was still showing it that way too. And that was a lot of the stuff of being like, where's the crowd? Where's the excitement? Where is it? And it's like, well, we must just not be there yet, right? It's like, we must just not be in the thick of the craziness yet, because it's not, where's the crowd? And then as time traveled on and traveled on and traveled on, it's like, well, wait a minute. Are we flashing that we're actually like the 2021 top, that secondary top that we ended up hitting? And then you look back, and then of course that's where we start bear week over there in late September and early October, because we're flashing a lot of similarities there to it being like, well, wait a minute. This is like the secondary top that happened in 2021. And of course, I look back on all the data now, and I look at all my own other stuff and things that I track on my back end. And there was no euphoria here. just like we saw in 2021. And, we're still, it still tells me January was likely our peak of the market. And that's hard to wrap your head around again if you didn't like study 2021 intensely. I did study 2021 intensely. It paid dividends to be able to do that because I was able to communicate that to you in late September or in early October rather than like pretending it was voodoo and ignoring it and focusing on 2017. I was able to communicate all of that stuff to you and those concerns to you. But still, it still looks like exactly like entering 2022. The thing is, though, that it's having to recognize we're really deep into it. There's still probably the capitulation to come. The unfortunate thing about the capitulation is that what I worry about is crowd sentiment and what will happen to people in that moment. Right now, like let's pretend your portfolio is down 50%. That hurts. But it's not like being down 85, 90%. 85, 90% is a very dark place to be in. 50%, you kind of say to yourself, all right, whatever. We do this kind of stuff, we'll rebound from here, right? And we know that's, the things that we're seeing, right? Like 38, like we just talked about, 38 is kind of the median. But it's once you get to those really lower numbers where a lot of pessimism hits. And I'm worried that we're going to get there. And, for me, I just think of it as like, I don't want to get to a point where I'm down 80%. Like, I don't want to get there. If I have to chase higher prices, dude, I will just chase higher prices. It is what it is. But I don't want to get to that dark place. And it's very dark down there. And I don't know how I got on this tangent. But anyway, I got to get back to the chat because I'm going too slow. I'm only 3 in, and that took me 10 minutes. Mitchell Wilson, hey BCB, I hope you're well. What do you think about the Ethereum over Bitcoin rising? Anything positive for Ethereum and alts there, you think? I'm not really reading too much into it right now because I do think Ethereum's doing really what it should be doing in here after these phases have already occurred, that we've kind of run our course. I think we're just in a corrective phase right now. It might not be too much left here in Ethereum, maybe 3,600. And then, obviously we just kind of continue ABCing from here. And that's, the same type of stuff that I see over here in the other aspects of the market. So I'm really not reading too much into Ethereum over BTC. Could just be that Bitcoin's going to perform worse than Ethereum. Right. So my top 3 holdings in crypto are number 1, XRP, number 2, Ethereum, number 3, Bitcoin. So I'm happy for Ethereum. I'm not trying to talk down on Ethereum or anything like that. And I totally plan on buying more Ethereum. But, Polish Proton, new member, welcome. Derek Miller, member for 5 months. Video before Thanksgiving called Bitcoin watch at 91 to 93K, which has played out since. Where did that level come from? Like if it would stall out in here? Well, just because if it's going to, this has been the structure. Remember that was just like multiple scenarios, up, down, left, right, A, B, start, all those types of things, right? Like overall general thesis is down, right? That's overall general thesis is down. Question is it going to have enough juice to be able to go back into a retracement in here and get enough juice? I think that the thing that would shock the whole market is that everybody's trying to get back to that, right? Everybody's trying to get back to this 50-week moving average and the 200-day moving average, right? The 200-day moving average is a little bit higher than the 50-week. But everybody got caught by surprise, right, in here. And so everybody wants it to get back here to go ahead and take some profits and remove some from the table. And people say, I've never seen people so bearish before. It's not that people are bearish. It's that people are wrong-footed. It's that they're stuck in upside down positions and don't have a way to get out. And so they want a way to get out. Max pain would be that it doesn't let you out, right? That it doesn't give that opportunity to get out. And that, right, it stalls out underneath these levels in here, right? As we've seen, it has followed along for a corrective topping structure so far. And so these are really the ideas in here of it really kind of stalling out. I don't know if with any level of certainty, and I keep kind of saying that to not marry myself to it when I'm making videos, to be like, I don't have any level of confidence to tell you if it's going to be this or if it's going to be something like this to happen in here. But this would be the ultimate max pain scenario because the crowd was so euphoric up here. The crowd, and then when the liquidation happened, everybody being like, "Oh no, that was just a fluke. That was just nothing. That was just leverage wipeout," and not believing that we were going to keep going down, which I did think we were going to keep going down, but people weren't selling into it, and now it's gone down even further. So now they're like, "Okay, well, wait a minute. Now we've met a lot of the criteria of a bear market. I want to get out. Let me get back to here, and I'll take it." What if it doesn't offer that opportunity? Right, that would be max pain. But yeah, it's hard down in here because I still own crypto, right? I'm not like a fully sidelined bear, right? Like I wish I had been, but I'm not. And so I look at it too of being like, all right, I probably would like to have a little bit more sidelined because I do think a capitulation event is coming. But it's really hard to do it down here because the risk to reward is very difficult. You're kind of in that middle ground of, is it a good place to do it? Is it not a good place to do it? And, it would hurt pretty bad to do it down here and then it catch a bid. Maybe the Bitcoin dominance falls a little bit and market rips upwards and, you miss that opportunity. So I do understand where people are. And I have some positions I would like to, and I'm lucky that I don't have like a ton that I need to do. It would just be maybe 10% more of my portfolio to try to get into cash. But I get where they're at. I get the struggle right now that people are in because it's a really difficult spot right now to be able to do anything on either one of these. What are you doing with 20 cryptos? They are in red. Well, not all my cryptos are in red. There's nothing for me to do right now. Fortunately, profits were taken up in here on them to at least alleviate, going too downside on them. Ben, hey, BCB, I bought your course back in 2020. You still stand by the price targets in your Google spreadsheet, Ethereum, Dash, and BCH. Well, a lot of these things have obviously changed over the years as we've watched 2021 change the market, right? We watched how market caps ended up becoming the things that ended up mattering. Ethereum Classic essentially went full distance already 4.5 years ago, right? And then we just watched Zcash go full distance on its market cap just several weeks ago, right? And so those are things that were new developments in the crypto market during the 2021 cycle is that market caps ended up mattering. And then we watched in 21 cycle how only 20% of coins even touched highs. So hard to say any of these things. This market is very different than what it was from 2017. So no, I don't think we're going to see a lot of targets on a lot of things, but Ethereum Classic already hit. Mark OFG, thank you. I've been a bit since I could watch live. Member for 30 months. I hope you and your family are well, and your son's arm is well healed. I noticed less than 1,000 in this live stream. We're at 1,600 right now, but yeah, this is exactly what you would expect. This is prices are down. This is where we see this. Like typically when we're like neutral market, it's like 1,800 to 2,400. But you're clearly seeing it, guys, in front of you. 1,600 viewers, right? You're clearly seeing it in front of you. As for his arm, yeah, that was like a year and 4 months ago. He's all good now. Learned no lessons. He goes to timeout if he's caught standing on the couch now. Just even standing on the couch, timeout. If you don't know, my son fell off a bed. He was a monkey jumping on a bed with a friend last year and broke his arm. XR Priest 777. Hey, BCB, do you have buy orders in for capitulation? Or are you taking a wait and see approach? Yeah, no, I haven't set any buy orders yet. Like, just because I think we're still a ways away from it. I think I'll watch structurally how the market will end up behaving. I just don't think it's like, I just don't think we're close to it. Right. What I have to kind of like mentally prepare for is that there's typically a crowd drawn. There's typically something that's going to pull the crowd in where everybody's going to think the bull is still on. And it's kind of like when we get to that euphoria moment, like if this thing catches a big retrace in here or something like that, where the crowd is just totally pulled in. And I don't think the crowd is pulled in yet. The Jake Fu Show 6332. Thank you very much. He says, I'm hodling XRP for another 4 years. I didn't hear the bell. Like Randy Marsh. XRP Crypto Nations 8732. Do you still expect a bubble pop in equities? Struggling to see how crypto could bottom in March given the majority of equities haven't crashed. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So it would essentially have to be, that'll be something we'll have to watch, right? And that's why I'm also just not in a rush right now. If this, we have to wait and see how this is going to go in here. Right? You would think if the equity market is going to legit crash and crumble, it's very hard to imagine how crypto is going to rally to such great heights. And I think we all have to be very real with this market and saying you can't just buy any asset anymore. You just can't do that. It's going to have to be such incredible methodical thought process and on which ones truly have value in here, because it just doesn't seem like it's going to be the crypto market. Anybody and is used to, I don't know the words to say, imagined it. I think one thing I'm having to think a lot about too, and just kind of like, I haven't spent too much time on it, but when there's like downtime to really think about it, like when you think back on 2021, the NFT craze, then you go to 2024 and 2025, the meme coin craze, and right, like there's, in 2017, the altcoin craze, right, was 2017's altcoin craze, just that was the only thing available at that time for people to be able to degenerately gamble on. But then in 2021, along came NFTs, and then in 2025, along came meme coins. And, some things still retain value, and we're able to hit highs like Binance Coin and Ethereum and XRP. But like we just talked about with a lot of these other altcoins, right, not ever be able to get any kind of traction on them. And that is a lot of the altcoin market, just the degenerate gambling. Is that all that it is? And it may be, right? So yeah, if equities crash and crumble, it's hard to see it. PH Team Help. If crypto and equity winter, do you still plan on making videos? Well, I still am. I think we're in a winter right now, but I still show up 3 times a week, right? So I think we're in that right now. I just, there's two different strategies that you can kind of go with as a content creator in this type of environment. And I'm kind of watching it from the sidelines a little bit. When viewership is down, like as you can see, we have 1,700 people in the chat. Coinbase app downloads are in the 400s. The alternative strategy is to increase the number of videos to try to make up for the reduced viewership. I've been doing this for over 6 years at this point. I just, I don't have any interest in doing that. But as people have always asked me, we go into it or you're just going to leave. And it's like, no, I've told you very clearly, this is blockchain backer is a defining part of who I am. And, doing it, 3 times a week feels comfortable for me right now in this environment. I think if we get beyond this environment, that may pick up again if there's a lot of things to talk about. But I have done this so long, I know that people get to a point where, hey, you're just repeating yourself. And it's not something... I got a little... This burned me out a little bit. Doing Bear Week in here burned me out a little bit to watch how aggressive people were and how the content creators acted. And so I still have this view, right? I still have this view that there's still a capitulation to come, yet the content creators are not acknowledging any high time frame indicators by any means, right? Like that's just ignored. And so if I come on here every day, 5 days a week, just continuing to do this and just keep doing this, I'm just upsetting people. And I know I'm upsetting people by doing it because my subscriber count's going down. Now, I'm not working hard to try to increase my subscriber count. But that what people definitely want is like you can look to who has subscriber counts growing, and it's people who are saying we're going to $500 in December. That's what people want. So I'm not sharing things that people necessarily want to hear a lot right now. And for that, why come on here and make a tremendous amount of videos to try to capture an audience in any way? I'm just going to kind of wait it out and just kind of keep doing it the way I'm doing it. But I do think once we get beyond capitulation, you may get annoyed. And here's what will always happen to prepare, right? I can at least attempt to try to look at it through a bullish lens after a capitulation occurs. But what will happen to the market at that time is crowd sentiment will then have completely flipped, right? Then, like right now, people are in max pain, but they're still holding on to hope, right? Then comes max pain, no hope. Once we get to max pain with no hope, it becomes a very toxic place to hang out in. But that's where I would change the lens to say, hey, look, it looks like we're probably through the worst of this. Like, there's no guarantee that the bottom is in, but like when you look at it through the lens of being a completed bear market, we've done really all the steps of it, right? And then so once we get to that, you can sit here and say, all right, well, you can at least start trying to build arguments now. And I'll try to start building those arguments and, come on every day and be like, hey, well, we have this argument, we have that argument. Maybe the DXY is turned over by then, right? Maybe equities have stabilized, don't know. But, at that time, the crowd will be very negative and pessimistic. And what will they be? Remember, right? What was it like through all of this stuff? 12K, 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 right? This one will be 40K, 35K, 40K, 35K. That's what people will be doing the whole time. And we'll have to come on here and be like, well, the argument is that maybe not, right? But right now, your question is, if it's crypto and equity winter, will you still plan on making videos? I think we're in one. I think we're in crypto winter. And I'm still showing up. But the thing is, that's a good question to say. If it's a crypto winter, will you make videos? Most people don't think it's a crypto winter right now. And that by the time they realize it's a crypto winter, we won't be at a median of negative 38%. We'll be at a median of, negative 70. And then they'll be like, oh, okay, it's crypto winter now. And it's like, well, it started way up here. Yeah. So, all right. Any thoughts on Bitcoin D monthly MACD flipped red and increasing? Yeah, I know. It's that we've talked about that for months on end. I was probably the first one to show that. It's a incredible phenomenon that nothing ever happened with that. Dave Schwartz Chuber, I don't know, 9940 gifted 10 memberships. Brother, thank you very, very much. Handicappers. You're planning to buy capitulation. Are you expecting new Bitcoin all-time highs then by 2029-ish or a swing trade? Wondering macro thesis for cycles now. Yeah, it's hard to know right now. Everybody wants to know, where's the bottom? What's it going to look like? What's the future going to look like? It's very complicated. And I think we all know it's very complicated. And this is very complicated to happen in here. And then you got the Russell trying to poke at the high, but you got silver completely annihilating out to the upside. Very difficult for here. And it's very difficult for everybody. And you can see that by how just everybody's wrong-footed right now, right? And even now it's hard to be like, hey, should we go? It's very conflicting to even be like, hey, time to go to 100% cash because of conflicts, right? If that Russell busts out of there, if that dollar breaks down, well, then how do you still say I should be in 100% cash, right? Or being 100% in crypto, well, how do you do it when all the monthly indicators are flipped upside down and everything? And when silver's busting out into the highs, and we look just like every past bear market before with capitulation right on the horizon, how do you be 100% in crypto? So you still don't have a clear picture for either one. I think the picture still leans much more towards the capitulation is going to end up coming. But I don't. Right now, in this particular moment in time, I do not know how you be 100% in crypto. I do not know how you be 100% in cash. I think if Bitcoin gave a bigger push to the upside, and like if Ethereum gave a bigger push to the upside, if XRP gave a bigger push to the upside, you have like risk to reward managements that you could end up taking, right? Like if XRP got to 250, there's an opportunity to kind of take a shot at negating it here with a stop above 312. There's at least like something there, but way down here, it's very difficult. Anyway, I got to keep moving. I'm going way too slow. We're at 52 minutes already. Opportunity YouTube. Hey, BCB, does XRP have any juice left? 230 to 250, maybe. I just showed that, right? So I don't know. Max Payne drop coming. All X posting 100X is coming. All of X is posting that 100K is coming. YDog79, do you have any targets in mind on how far the gold to silver ratio is going to fall this cycle? Not in particular. This is a chart we've obviously looked at many times over the years. And this is like the Dow Jones Industrial Average to silver ratio, right? And so, my thoughts have been that we'll eventually get down to these levels. And we've talked about this for years. This is crazy. Years. How it perfectly nailed the 702. And it's finally broken down in here. I do think we're going to see at least another cut in half happen here of the Dow versus silver. And what's, of course, fascinating about this is that the Dow hasn't fallen at all during this happening. But as for the actual gold to silver ratio, maybe I have, same area. it's hard with these though. So like if you look at like everybody's, I don't know what the numbers are, what people say, but you know, whether it needs to, the average is 15 to 1 or whatever like that throughout the history of all time. You know, the manufacturing and how much gets pulled above ground, it's about an 8 to 1 ratio. But, you know, gold has different properties and things like that. But I mean, like we're literally talking ratios, maybe 40. I don't know. Like, dude, I promise you, my guess on the gold to silver ratio is probably as good as anybody's, and being a monkey in a zoo. That's how confident my guess would be on that. Thoughts on XRP and ETF flows and price over the next 30 to 60 days? By Desmo. Desmo, very generous. Thank you very, very much, man. He dropped a hundo, man. Thank you very much. I don't care about ETF flows. I don't think they matter. I think I pretty much say, like, this is what I probably think is going to happen. That, you know, we're probably stuck here for the next 30, 60, 90 days. And I think the market's going to capitulate. People create a lot of stories and a lot of narratives around XRP that it's going to, you know, flip the switch and Japan carry trade and all that kind of stuff in there. But it just moves with the market. It behaves with the market. Right now, I do think that we're in a phase like this in the market, and we're not acting any differently to say otherwise at this time. If something different shows up, we'll acknowledge it right away. But there's nothing in here saying we're doing anything differently, right? Not right now. So, you know, I think we kind of cover that. Well, I cover that in every video, I think. You're very generous super chat, but I think I answered that question constantly, that it just seems range bound right now, right? Very generous. I'm very thankful. But I don't know how to answer your question any differently than what I pretty much say in every video and live stream. Can you come in your newsletter, give some guidance on how you handle your crypto portfolio? Well, anytime I've made moves, I've let you guys know. And the last one was back in September. There's nothing to do right here. I think what people want to hear is sell low. There's nothing to do here. Right, so that portfolio has a larger cash position in it, but there's nothing to do down here. If it gets a move up higher, which I even wrote in the last newsletter, I would take a shot at getting more cash, but there's just nothing for me to do down here. Carlos DePaz 364, thank you very much. No message, but a super chat. Thank you. Xenogen 28, hey BCB, next cycle I plan to invest primarily in Bitcoin, maybe around October 2026, looking for news events during that time to invest. What do you think of that plan? You helped me make $1 million. Thank you. Jeez, dude. You made $1 million. I was just a dude making YouTube videos. Good for you. If crypto does act on cycles, right, then it would imply that the bottom of Bitcoin comes in probably around, right, August, September, October of 2026, right? That's just what it would imply, because that's kind of what it always does. So your thought is that, right, like I'll go ahead and grab it in a year after the peak came in there, and debatable, very debatable, where the top is. Is the top actually here in August? Is it actually here in September? Or is it in July? Right? Is this right? Is this right in here really just this, and our peaks back over here? I think it could be, right. So August, September, October is kind of the idea, right? I'm waiting a year to get there. Only buying Bitcoin? I don't know about only buying Bitcoin. I mean, the obvious answer is that is the clear thing that has won the most, is to do that, to just get Bitcoin. So as a primary component of a portfolio, it's a clear a clear winner, right? And so my plan is that yes, a majority of it would be Bitcoin, but I won't just get Bitcoin. I will still get XRP. I will still get Ethereum, but that's me. I think anything beyond those three, it's very difficult, very, very, very difficult beyond those three. But I think what we would see is if this is a bear market, which it does appear to be one, we will not just have straight down lines, and especially if we're talking until, like you're talking about waiting until September, October of next year, there's no way. There's no way it's going to look like this, right? At this rate, right? This was in July. We're at negative 41,000. It's not going to do that, right? So there's going to be a lot of tricks along the way, right? Whether it's here, it goes up, and down. I think there's going to be a lot of tricks along the way. That'll make it very difficult. The first area for me is really getting back to that 2021 high. When we get back to that 2021 high, I will add some Bitcoin blindly. And then, if it bounces, I'll probably risk manage some of it and cut some of it right in here, because there's just no way that's going to be our story. I can't say there's no way, but unlikely to be our story, right? But then risk managing some bounces in case, like you talked about, it takes until October and that we end up revisiting it multiple times, right? Carlos De Paz, what is your thoughts on Raul Paul and his crew's argument that the debt refinancing extended to 5 years opposed to 4-year cycle into 2026? I really don't like commenting on anybody else's analysis. I just kind of let things go for themselves. I think a lot of people try to point to a lot of different data points, and I don't know if those data points really matter. I think the most recent one that everybody was pointing to was it money supply or something? What was the one that everybody was using? Somebody will tell me in the chat. The one that they would only show like the last year and a half of it. M2 money supply. Right? So what's up with that? Does that not matter anymore? Why isn't that working? I think, right, I don't really want to comment because I don't like commenting on other people's analysis and other people's opinions. Everybody works very hard to create their own analysis and their own opinions, and my job is not to come on here and doo-doo on them. I think all I can do is present my arguments, and you can view them how you want and compare them. But I get asked a lot about other people's analysis, and I don't like commenting on it. Because what people always want to do is pin analysts against each other, and there's just no point in doing that. Just learn, do your own thing, figure it out. Desmo, thank you very much, man. Again, geez, how do you think ETFs affected Bitcoin? I don't think they did. Looking at the numbers and outflows of Bitcoin would not have hit 126K without ETFs. I don't believe that. Or is that false? New to the channel, but I enjoy your view, even though I want to shake you like a baby. Sorry if the questions are repeats. It's okay, man. Well, see, I don't think they mattered, right? Right. It followed equity markets to get to where it was at. And then it hit these things. Like we're in the middle of all this, right? Like and all this stuff. People were really trying to get me to commit to say, hi, like what was my target area for Bitcoin? It was between 120 and 135 is where I thought the top would come in for Bitcoin. And it structurally behaved like you'd expect. If anything, is even weaker, right? But I don't think ETFs played any role whatsoever in Bitcoin. Whatsoever. I think it's just typical market cycle wave counts, right? And what I always find fascinating is that, like, even for Elliott waivers, how can we not count this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? How do we not count it like that? I don't know. That's why Elliott wave counting is very subjective. No, I don't want to count it that way. I count it this way. Right. And so here we'll read that too, just so we do know, so we understand Elliott wave theory. Elliott wave counting is widely considered subjective. Different traders and analysts can look at the same market data and arrive at different valid wave counts and interpretations, leading to divergent predictions. The reasons for subjectivity include pattern recognition. The theory relies heavily on identifying repetitive patterns, 5-wave impulse, 3-wave corrective, within price movements, which is an exercise in judgment. Fractal nature. Waves exist across multiple time frames, degrees from long-term super cycles to short-term subminute waves. This complexity makes discerning the operative degree challenging for many users. Flexibility of rules. While there are strict rules, e.g. wave 2 never retraces more than 100% of wave 1, there are also numerous guidelines and complex variations, like different types of flat or zigzag corrections that allow for a wide range of interpretations. Lack of timing. The theory says nothing about how long a wave should take to form, only the pattern it should follow. A pattern expected to take days could stretch for months or years, frustrating trading plans. Individual bias. A trader's individual bias and experience can influence their interpretation, making it difficult to maintain objective analysis. So Elliott wave theory has its place, but it also is very subjective and can be difficult. And so I can come on here and count waves and do all that kind of stuff and everything like that. But challenges that we're facing, obviously, in the market is that, when we come on here and we say, oh, these things don't matter because of my Elliott wave count or things like that, right? Like these things have historically mattered, and that just is what it is. So we can argue till we are blue in the face on whatever we want. But when we only use, like in coding, right? If this, then that. And that's it. And we're super strict and we don't do anything except say, if this, then that. Then we say, if this, then bear market. If this, then bear market. If this, then bear market. That's it. Like we don't have to complicate anything beyond that to say, hey, there were still capitulation events that came afterwards, right? And so anytime this has occurred, it implied there was a capitulation that followed afterwards. And so whether that remains true, it doesn't remain true, it's what it is. So I don't know how I got on that tangent about and so like you shouldn't want to shake me as a baby. Like that's the hard part too. Like people are so mad, and I'm not saying that you're mad because you're being very generous, and there you got another one coming up after that and they're very kind. That was the interesting thing about September and October, is that people were so mad about indicators flashing. You know, and I even said, I'm going to try to do things that are not subjective or objective opinion pieces, but just try to show you, here's what the indicators are doing, and here's what they meant last time they did this. And that's what I really tried to do in September and early October. And that made people mad, which is interesting, right? And so this shouldn't make people mad. It's just, hey, look, here's what it's doing. Here's what it's meant and what happened afterwards when it has done this before. And that's just kind of where we're at. Will it behave differently? I don't know. We'll see. But every time it's done it before, this is what the end result was afterwards. And so, you know, everybody determine what you want to do with that information. Do you want to do nothing and say this time is different? Or do you want to interpret it as saying, hey, maybe it's going to do the same thing it's done every time that it's done this? That's part of being in markets. Kevin says, I'm sure you're tired of getting asked this question by now, but are you ticklish? It's the number one question I get asked in the live streams. I think I've answered it probably 300 times. Yes, I am ticklish. And my wife thoroughly enjoys walking up to me when I have my feet on the coffee table and just running her finger up my foot and causing a nice spaz attack by me. So, yes, I am. But Desmo, man, very, very generous. And I know you got another one coming through I'll get to here in a sec. I'll get you to right now. BB, thank you for your detailed explanation. And I appreciate your insight. I wish you and your family well. Cheers. Very generous, very kind. You were very respectful in everything you asked. Thank you very much. Kevin Little, I'm sure, thank you. The ticklish question. Yeah, happiest little place in the galaxy. Member for 26 months. This time is different. LOL. Well, the thing is, this time has been very different in many ways, right? Especially with the stock market, silver. I mean, this just tells you no matter what, this is different. And it's very difficult, right? Very, very difficult. HB, ABCB, for your true supporters, is it possible you get XRP price range to pay attention to in terms of the top for XRP before capitulation? Well, I think I kind of cover that. Like we're kind of range bound in here. It seems like 250 potentially has it. It's just whether it's got the juice to get up there. Misha Wilson, if we get a retrace, would you then be looking for shorts? I don't necessarily think I'll be looking for shorts. I think I would more so just be looking to try to build my cash position a little bit, just a little bit more, right? And managing it to make sure this market doesn't run away to the upside and that I have to revise my opinions and revise how my portfolio is managed. I think it's hard to do it because it's not like it doesn't feel like a straight, easy bet. Like if the stock market was crashing right now, I think it would be pretty easy to say, yeah, look, we have a very clearly crashing stock market to go along with it. I'll go ahead and take an aggressive play on it. I just don't know if we're quite there yet. So, all right, there we go. We've gotten through. That was very generous of you guys. Thank you for all of the good questions. We'll get through the Fed meeting today. That's the big thing to watch for today to see how this goes. Julio Energy says, Brad G being positive on X about XRP, is it a good sign? It's been real weird with Brad and with Ripple and all that kind of stuff. One thing we noticed, right, that was one thing that kind of rang the alarm bell. There was two different things that rang alarm bells to me, was that when the SEC officially dropped the case, or their appeals got dropped or whatever like that, Brad never acknowledged that on X when that happened. Nobody, if Ripple, it was not really acknowledged on X when that happened. And that was also the 702 retrace, and that was the peak price of XRP at that time. We have not seen prices at that level since then, and we can easily pinpoint that right there. Thursday, August 7th. That's where it happens. That's a 702 Fibonacci retrace, right? Boom. They don't want to, I speculate, right? They don't want to acknowledge it. That's peak price, not create FOMO, not do anything, right? Now price is falling, you know, is a support level trying to be held here? I don't know. David Schwartz announces his resignation in here. Market then crashes afterwards, right? Which we acknowledge. It was during Bear Week, right? That's what was crazy, right? Like started Bear Week, then Jim Cramer's like, buy crypto. And then David Schwartz is like announcing his resignation. And it's like, remember David Schwartz like nailed the top of 2021. But no, I don't have any way to read that or know if bull posting about XRP with Brad is anything to look at or know about. I don't know. So, okay. Also, need the frog. Okay, we were supposed to keep it light, tight, and bright. While I'm playing the frog, if you could hit the like button, I appreciate it.
It is Wednesday, my dude. It is Wednesday,
All right. There we go. Don't let that play. Good to go. All right, here we go. It's the big day. Fed day again, guys. That shows up here in 3 hours and 42 minutes. So get your stuff done. Get your work done. Get ready for extreme volatility throughout all markets. And we'll see how things end up going. Otherwise, check out the newsletter over here at blockchainbacker.substack.com. Most recent one's a 40-minute audio recording in there. Where I deep dive into the market over here. Blockchainbacker.substack.com. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this live stream and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor, but if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.